Number 7. Cameron Herrin. On the morning of May the 23rd of 2018, Cameron Herrin and his friend, John Marino, headed towards a gym in the Tampa area of Florida. 18-year-old Herrin was driving a Ford Mustang that his mother had gifted him, while Marino was behind the wheel of a golden Nissan. The two vehicles came to a stop at a traffic light and then suddenly sped off, reportedly engaging each other in a drag race. As the two high-performance cars came barreling down the road, 24-year-old Jessica Reisinger Robineau was preparing to cross the street along Gandhi Boulevard with her daughter, Lilia. Marino managed to swerve and avoid them while Herrin pulled away from the Nissan and hit the brakes at around 100 miles per hour. The Mustang slowed down to about 30 or 40 miles per hour before it plowed into the mother and daughter, killing them both. For his role in the incident, Marino made a deal with the state in exchange for a 6-year prison sentence, 15 years probation, and 200 hours of community service, a major part of which he'd spent talking about the dangers of reckless driving. During Herrin's trial, evidence was presented which indicated that in the days leading up to the fatal crash, he'd driven the Mustang at roughly 162 miles per hour. His history of speeding weighed into the judge's decision, and in April of 2021, Herrin was sentenced to 24 years in prison after pleading guilty to vehicular manslaughter. In the incident's aftermath, and as news of it circulated online, Cameron Herrin gained a rather disturbing social media following. Most of the users' arguments were centered on the fact that he was too good-looking to be sent to prison, and that he should be spared or given less time because he didn't mean to do it. TikToks about the street racer racked up over 2 billion views, and millions of videos featured the hashtag Justice for Cameron. A Facebook page dedicated to him had over 12,000 members. Some of the accounts have been identified as bots, but many were real-life people who developed an obsession for Herrin. His friends and family were stalked online while the Florida Department of Corrections Central Florida Reception Center prison was inundated with phone calls when he was housed there. Prison guards also reported that their personal numbers were leaked online. The situation caused Herrin to be placed in solitary confinement and ultimately moved to a different correctional facility. Critics of the attention Herrin had received online argued that his fans were essentially invalidating the killing of a mother and her daughter by supporting Herrin simply based on how handsome he was. Number 6. Brendan Khuri. On February the 17th of 2021, Los Angeles teenager Brendan Khuri crashed his luxury sports car and killed a 32-year-old woman while allegedly taking part in an illegal street race. 17-year-old Khuri had gotten a Lamborghini as a birthday present from his multi-millionaire father, James, himself a collector of high-performance cars. He would flaunt his lavish lifestyle on social media through posts relating to his multi-million-dollar Beverly Hills mansion, private jets, and his love of Lamborghinis. Some of the posts also reflected his passion for racing, of which his son was also seemingly influenced. In the accident's aftermath, most of James's social media accounts were deleted, although the authorities did express an interest in recovering them from the archives of their parent websites. He'd given his son the Lamborghini Aventador SVJ worth over $500,000 in spite of protests from his mother, whom he divorced in 2008. At the time of the crash, the teenage Khuri was driving it at nearly 106 miles per hour. He plowed into a Lexus sedan driven by 32-year-old Monique Munoz. The impact was so powerful that it nearly tore Munoz's vehicle in half. She was pronounced dead while Khuri was taken to the hospital with a brain injury, from which he ultimately recovered. LAPD Detective James Dixon believed that Khuri was racing an Audi, which was present at the scene but not involved in the crash. The teenager pled guilty to vehicular manslaughter with gross negligence in the Inglewood Juvenile Court. As he broke down in tears and apologized to Munoz's family in the aftermath, protesters demanded justice for Monique, asking that he be tried as an adult and for James to be charged with contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Number 5. Incident in San Marino. On Independence Day 2019, a college professor and his dog were killed after being violently struck by street racers. The incident occurred in San Marino, California. 49-year-old Gabriel Crispo was jogging on the Huntington Drive median alongside his girlfriend and their dog, Nino. Two 17-year-olds whose names weren't released because of their status as minors were racing and lost control of their vehicles. One of the teens behind the wheel of a Mercedes-Benz abruptly crossed from the rightmost lane to the leftmost one. In doing so, the Benz collided with the other vehicle, a Toyota, thus creating an effect which law enforcement likened to a pursuit intervention technique, or PIT. It's a tactic employed by squad car drivers that involves clipping the back of a car they're pursuing, forcing it to abruptly turn sideways, which causes the driver to lose control and stop. As the Benz started spinning uncontrollably, it fatally struck both Crispo and Nino. In the aftermath, the teens pleaded guilty to vehicular manslaughter with gross negligence in a deal that involved non-custodial sentences by serving time in an alternative work services program, 60 days for the Benz driver and 30 for the teen driving the Toyota. San Marino Police Chief John Incontro reported that while he understood the need for rehabilitation, he was disappointed with the degree of accountability to which the street racers had been held. Crispo's mother and his girlfriend jointly sued the drivers and their guardians. Number 4. Tao Lung. In 2013, Chinese street racer Tao Lung suffered a fatal accident in the city of Kunming, Yunnan province. 28-year-old Lung was driving a Jaguar F-Type worth over $100,000 while racing another vehicle at speeds of over 150 miles per hour. Lung was trying to overtake the other racer on a residential street when a car pulled out of a house. This caused him to lose control of the Jaguar. He struck a curb and collided with a tree that tore off a wheel and the vehicle's roof. Lung was ejected from the Jaguar and, while lying in the street, was run over by another vehicle, which killed him instantly. When police arrived at the scene, they deliberately left his body uncovered in full view of the crowd, as a deterrent to other would-be racers. The body was in the street for at least an hour and was only loaded into a funeral van after the wrecked vehicle had been cleared away. Beijing Evening News described street racing as a growing trend in a country that on a yearly basis is statistically responsible for more road deaths than any other state in the world. Videos are regularly posted on social media of heavily modified cars going head-to-head, often in dense traffic. Number 3. Hamlet Arseni Agajanian. In August of 2021, 3 people were killed in a devastating accident after being caught in the middle of an illegal street race in Los Angeles. The victims were identified as Natalie Mogadam, Jaden Johnson, and Sarain Baker, aged 19, 20, and 21 respectively. The latter was the son of comedian Tony Baker. He, Mogadam, Johnson, and a 4th unnamed passenger were traveling in a Volkswagen, and as they made a left at an intersection, ended up in the path of the street racers. The entire back side of the Volkswagen was sheared off as the 2 cars, a Kia and a Mercedes-Benz, T-boned it. All 4 occupants were thrown out of the vehicle and only one survived with serious injuries and was transported to a local trauma center. The driver of the Kia, later identified as 19-year-old Hamlet Arseni Agajanian, was also removed from the scene in critical condition, while the occupants of the Mercedes-Benz didn't report any injuries. Debris was strewn across 2 city blocks, and Burbank Police Department Sergeant Emil Brimway reported it as the worst accident he'd seen in his 19-year-long career. In late August, Agajanian was arrested and charged with 3 counts of murder and 1 count of reckless driving, as was the unnamed 17-year-old driver of the Mercedes. Today's topic was inspired by David Armstrong. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Jawad Qureshi. On December the 23rd of 2013, 3 men were killed in a horrific crash near Arnos Grove in North London as a result of a street race gone wrong. Witnesses had reported seeing at least 4 vehicles driving at high speed while weaving in and out of traffic. They were 2 Volkswagen Golfs, a Vauxhall Astra, and a high-powered Subaru Impreza driven by 28-year-old Jawad Qureshi. His uncle Haider, also aged 28, was in the vehicle, along with his 34-year-old friend Tawhid Robani. The cars were engaged in what the authorities described as a high-risk cat-and-mouse game. The driver of the Vauxhall, Ali Hassan, insisted that he was only traveling at 34 miles per hour when Jawad's Subaru clipped him. It became airborne and flew into the opposite side of the road, at which point it was struck by a Warburton's bread lorry. The Subaru was severely distorted, and the remains of its occupants were so badly mangled that they initially had to be identified by their bank cards. All three died at the scene. A toxicology report found traces of THC in Jawad's blood, indicating that he might have been under the influence. After the accident, 22-year-old Hassan, along with two other men, also in their 20s, each pleaded guilty to 3 counts each of causing death by careless driving. A court concluded that they were on average all speeding up to 18 miles per hour over the limit. They were sentenced to 9 months in prison and suspended from driving for an additional 19 months. Number 1. David Puria and Oliver Enstone. On December the 27th of 2014, Irene Rodriguez Caballero, aged 36, and her boyfriend, Jonathan Bosque, were returning home after going out for a meal in Reading, England. David Puria and Oliver Enstone, both in their 20s, hadn't met before, but on that night engaged each other in an impromptu street race. It was reported that Puria, driving a Vauxhall Astra, had seen a sticker on the bumper of Enstone's red Seat Leon which read, "Catch me if you can." It was a launching point for the race between the two car enthusiasts. Both were seen and recorded by CCTV cameras, driving at speeds in excess of 90 miles per hour. Caballero and Bosque, both originally from Barcelona, were only a few steps from the house they shared. Then, as Puria was coming off a roundabout, he was unable to negotiate a bend and struck the couple. Caballero was thrown into a brick wall in the front garden of a house on Caversham Road. She was rushed to John Radcliffe Hospital in Oxford, where 2 days later she succumbed to devastating head and leg injuries. When rescuers arrived at the scene, Bosque was also in critical condition, drifting in and out of consciousness. He survived but suffered multiple skull fractures and broken ankles, which would likely prevent him from walking properly for the rest of his life. Bosque was heartbroken in the months that followed the accident. He'd known Caballero since they were both toddlers before they reconnected on social media and became romantically involved. In court, he reported, "All our dreams came to ashes around the corner from our house." Caballero's family left the courtroom with placards around their necks that paid tribute to their loved one. Both Puria and Enstone, who'd fled the scene of the accident, were arrested and sentenced to 4 years and 8 months each. Thanks for watching. What is the highest traffic fine you've ever had to pay, and what was it for? Let us know in the comments section below.